Before we get on with the show, remember, you can listen to us literally anywhere. Podbean, iTunes, Spotify. You can find us on Twitter. We have our own Twitter account, MIA in the Hunt. Not missing in the hunt, Miami in the Hunt. Now let's get on with the show and get ready for some football. And In the Hunt continues. As always, I'm Jake Mendel, joined by Topher Cochran. And Topher, there are 2 penalties on the play, and they're both on the off.
The thing with those penalties is you're just kind of waiting for the flag to be thrown down, right?
Yep.
Something great happens, especially in the red zone, is you're waiting for the delay of game or the holding call, and it's so aggravating to have those penalties called. But now it's laughable because those eventually are going to make the Dolphins in the hunt.
Exactly, and I guess my issue with it is because there were even times I just kind of talked about it, but you'd even hear all right, there were 2 penalties on the play. It's like, maybe we can at least redo the down. Maybe we won't get the touchdown we just scored, but at least maybe we won't go back. Nope. There are 2 flags at every play, and this is why preseason is important. A lot of people are just going to write off everything that happens, but these flags are nothing new for the Dolphins. We heard about it happening in training camp. Oh, by the way, they were the most penalized team last year. It's just brutal. There was one play, I think they got a strip, sack, fumble, brought it back into the end zone, holding downfield. Awesome.
I would say the penalties, literally ever since Adam Gase has been in charge, they've been a top 5 team in penalties committed.
Right.
It's absurd. It's aggravating because those and it's the type of penalties that kill the drives, and the Dolphins aren't good enough to kill drives. I mean,
exactly.
They're not good enough to overcome those drives.
Right.
Because in between the 20-yard line, they're a great offense. They're exciting to watch. But once they get there, it's just drive killers. It's delay of games. I feel like if you get a delay of game in the NFL right now, you should just lose 2 downs. just not you can just lose 2 downs because it's absurd.
It's unacceptable.
It's unacceptable. And you would think the whole thing coming in with Ryan Tannehill is that he knows the offense.
Yep.
And they're trying to get everybody situated. Everybody knows the offense by now. The only people who don't are maybe the offensive linemen, but that's with calling blocks and all that.
Right.
But Jakeem Grant's been there for 2 years now. Danny Amendola, he's a smart dude. Albert Wilson played in Andy Reid's offense, so I'm sure a lot of these things aren't trick questions. It's
right,
just
exactly.
you're confused. It's just it's annoying and it's baffling because it's preseason and you're not trying not to get mad, but at the same time you want to see the team light up the opponent. Exactly. And they had the chance. They had the chance last week to light up the Panthers, and they did not.
4 field goals, and you're 100% right because it seems they're gonna take the 7 to 10 yards on every play they seem to get, which is great. Do that. It's smart. You're not always going to hit a home run, sure. But like you mentioned, you get a holding call. Next thing you know, you got 2nd and 20. People are going to be ready if you try to throw deep to Albert Wilson or Kenny Stills all the time. There just needs to be a middle-of-the-field presence, I don't know, a second-round tight end. And I think that's my issue. We saw 4 field goals. That is so boring. Yes, it's preseason. It doesn't change anything. But the Panthers' 4th-round tight end pick broke away from Raekwon McMillan and ran in for a 30-yard touchdown. Why can't any of our players give me something to grasp onto and be let's go, let's be hyped? Because we're watching these games to get excited about these players and the scheme and all this other stuff, but if we're not seeing it in preseason and we're seeing the same mistakes of last year, how could you not be concerned?
I mean, we had it last year with Jakeem Grant, or the past 2 years with Jakeem Grant, right? He was the guy that Dolphin fans were getting excited over. And now we're just waiting for the next young guy to get excited over. And the thing is with you, like you said, you got Gesicki out there. And you kind of just want him to just catch a ball at this point. Just catch a ball.
Yep.
Do something.
Catch a 5-yard reception so I can make a gif of it and just watch it. So be
and
tight end can catch the ball.
And the thing with those field goals is what's annoying is that stuff you expect from a 3rd-team offense with Bryce Petty in.
Exactly.
Like those are the things. Like you know what? Like okay, so that you're expecting 12 points off of field goals, in the second half because it's third team and it's just a bunch of guys trying to play football.
Right.
Not with your quarterback who supposedly is supposed to know the offense and everything like that. And it just comes down to like just penalties, man. And it's just annoying that I got to deal or get upset or frustrated in the second week of preseason.
Exactly. I'm trying to get
it's like all of our aggravation has been like fast forwarded. Normally it's like week 4.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's the second week of preseason. So I got like 6 more weeks. I got to like, you know what I mean? Like I'm 6 weeks ahead of the curve of Dolphins anger.
Exactly. And people will bring up, well, when the Giants won their first Super Bowl, they started the season with 4 preseason losses. But I think they started that season like 0-2 or with like a pretty bad record. It's an indication of, hey, maybe we're not ready for the season. Hey, maybe we're not prepared. And I guess that's a little concerning. And, we can talk about, well, the Browns went 4-0 when they went 0-16 last year. They didn't have a quarterback. No one expected the team to be good. The Dolphins have a little bit of potential. And there's such a small room for error when you're in the hunt. You are so on the line of being 10-6 and 6-10, where you alluded to it. These flags are the difference. And Topher, I'm actually pretty excited to see Frank Gore this weekend. What about you?
I'm excited. Yeah, he's one of the reasons why I'm excited.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just kind of excited. Maybe we'll get like a Gesicki catch. This seems like a game where like like they actually might try to like put something out to give him some touches because he hasn't really had anything. And if you have a rookie tight end, you want him to get this experience, this live action of getting hit.
Exactly.
Trying to make a play. And so unless they just think like, yeah, he can make plays, then we're not going to like give him the ball. But I texted this to you during the game that they have an offense that could go 10-6, mm-hmm. but then they commit penalties that could make him be a top 8 pick.
Right.
Because 14 for 17 for 100 yards. If I told you Ryan Tannehill was 14 for 17, no, I'm not telling you the yards. I'm just telling you his completion and attempts. What would you think?
Like how many yards you think he would have?
No, just what if I just gave you that? If I gave you, Ryan Tannehill was 14 for 17 in the first half. What would you think?
I'd be like, okay, there's a little rhythm there.
There's a little, and then I told you right after that for 100 yards.
For 100 yards, I wrote this in my notes. I was like, it doesn't suck because you're 14 for 17, but it kind of sucks because you need to do a little more than that. The whole offseason was about how the offense is going to be more open, how Landry was just eating receptions, and it was up to him to do things after he caught the ball. But mm-hmm. we're seeing the same things, and I kind of noticed a trend, which like I said, we're not trying to overreact here, but it's just like
it's not an overreaction.
You want to expect more. You want to see your players play well in training camp. We always get hyped about players in training camp. Are we not supposed to do that in preseason? But it just seemed like the offense featured players, not plays. Because I think on the first drive we saw Amendola get 2 receptions. The second drive we saw Wilson get 3 targets with 2 receptions. And then the third drive we saw Darby catching some balls over the middle. So it seemed like they were trying to get guys involved and see what they could do. And it would have been cool to see one of those guys, break a play. That's really all I'm asking for is turn that 7-yard reception that's given into like a 30-yard with like a broken tackle. I mean, it's just, you want that at your team where you're going to need to make plays because the flags are brutal.
And we haven't even talked about the defense yet. I have no problem with the defensive ends.
Yep.
I have no problem with, honestly, for the secondary for the most part. Like I mean, Xavier Howard, if you have that guy opposite of your number 2 corner, like if he's playing the way he's playing and the hype that he has, the defense should be fine.
I think so too. I think we can also agree that Big Sack Bob is kind of here to stay. Wouldn't you agree?
He's dropping his sack on the quarterback probably every 3 games.
The fact that he dabbed after that first sack was just awesome. I'm like, yep, he'll fit in just fine here across from Wake. It'll be great.
And as of right now, he looks like he's a scheme guy, right? Is he a scheme guy?
I think so. Or is he just a good player who was in a bad scheme?
We don't know. Time will tell
The
if he
chicken
is
or
the
the egg?
scheme. Yeah, is it the chicken or the egg? But yeah, like I mean, that Christian McCaffrey run was, a I think that can happen to any defense, especially Raekwon McMillan right now. Would you consider him a rookie?
I was actually wanted to talk about this. Is it possible that the Dolphins have the top two guys in running for Defensive Rookie of the Year? Is that and can they with Raekwon
I,
McMillan?
I don't know, but like he is a rookie, right? He's making these mistakes that rookies make.
Right.
He
And
hasn't played, and he's also recovering from a torn ACL.
exactly. He's got to get his feet under him.
So you expect these mistakes to be made where like they don't adjust to the coverages, to the routes right away. And if he's a
Exactly.
smart guy, if he knows what he's doing, if he's good, then a lot of these mistakes that he's making right now shouldn't be an issue in the regular season. But I can tell you right now, it's pretty cool seeing Jerome Baker,
He's fast, man. I
he's just
love
fast.
watching him run around the field.
He
And
might get lost in blocks, but like he's fun to watch when he's like in pursuit of stuff.
absolutely. And when you think about it, Miami's back seven has been like just such a huge issue. Where now you have Howard in his third year looking. I'm gonna say the E word, Topher. I'm gonna say elite.
Don't do it.
I did it.
I was thinking, are you gonna extend him early?
Oh,
But that's
no.
not the Dolphins' MO. It's to wait till he's ready to be a free agent and then lose him, and we argue about it till our heads fall off.
Exactly. But you got him. You got two rookie linebackers who McMillan, yes, that play was bad, but he was able to blow up a screen. I think he didn't look as terrible as some people thought right after the game and the way
It's results oriented. It's all it is. It's just results oriented.
Yeah, exactly. And then you have Baker flying around. All of a sudden, there's three rookies. Howard looking great. The one thing I can see though is why there was a little concern with that second cornerback position. But I mean, you can't have a great player at every position. And
No, every team's got to have a weakness.
exactly. And if it's our second cornerback as our Achilles heel, so be it. We'll make do. We'll make do with the 15th version of either Cortland Finnegan or Bryce
Chris
McCain
Culliver.
or Alteron Werner. They're all the same guy.
Yeah, it's an anamorph. It's an anamorph. It goes from like Cortland Finnegan, Chris Culliver or whatever his name is, one of like the corners they signed in the offseason who was suspended.
Yep.
Yeah, you're hoping to get healthy. You got Cortland Finnegan, you got Dimitri Patterson. It's just reincarnations of the same guy, with just different uniforms.
Exactly. And I'm not too worried about it. Rashad looks awesome. But moving on to the next preseason game, it's like, don't anyone get mad at me for saying this, but it matters the most. If it doesn't matter at all, this one still matters the most. And it's against the Miami Dolphin Kryptonite, which is the Baltimore Ravens. And before we get into this, how bad is Lamar Jackson going to tear up our defense just by running the ball?
You would think that, but it wouldn't shock me if he tries to do too much just because it's preseason in Miami. He's from here.
Good point.
I don't know how much merit there is to that, but I mean, he could torch the Dolphins, but then again, he could play like crap.
He does look really antsy in the pocket a lot. That's one thing I really noticed. But he's the first to come out and say, all the issues he had and the problems he, went through during a game, which is actually a pretty cool insight because you don't get that from a lot of quarterbacks. But yeah, you might be right on that. But I mean, I could just see it. It's those type of quarterbacks that have always just murdered the Dolphins. But we're not here to talk about that because that stuff doesn't matter. Topher, what matchup are you looking forward to see between the Dolphins and Ravens? Maybe it'd be the wide receivers versus that really good secondary that includes an Eric Weddle for a half, or is it instead of me giving examples, just tell me.
Alex Collins.
Give
me Alex. I want to see the run game. I want to see it's really Alex Collins versus the linebackers.
Yep.
And then once it's Alex Collins with the linebackers, it's basically the Dolphins O-line versus the Ravens D-line because, like I said, that's the kryptonite. The last thing we have of that Dolphin team is the game where Kiko Alonso completely concussed Joe Flacco and set his brain back 18 years.
Oh my God!
That was it, right?
Woof.
I have that still on my phone because I'm not getting rid of it. But yeah, like I mean, the Ravens are awful, and I'm actually happy that they're facing the Ravens in preseason and not in the regular season, because if they had to face them in the regular season, it'll be awful.
That's
It'll
just
be
one
terrible.
like it's when we go back to what we said, early on in the podcast, where Dolphin quarterbacks, when they wear the beanie hat, they're gonna lose because they just look so miserable.
The surrender. It's the white flag.
Exactly, yeah, and someone's gonna come up. Well, what about the Steelers game? Antonio Brown should have never stepped out of bounds. The Dolphins got really freaking lucky. But it's just seemed that way since Marino, where you're wearing that beanie and they're just sitting on the sideline looking miserable, and you're just like, yeah, this game just ain't gonna go well. And it's gonna be cool to finally see, hopefully some of the offense in action. That's another thing everyone wanted to bring up. Well, we didn't bring out the playbook. Nobody knows our plays. Every team is doing that. So I mean, it's not this huge big surprise, and yet our defense hasn't looked great at times, especially. In the first game, more or less. But the Ravens game's actually going to give us something where we can argue about it, and I guess everyone will be on the same page.
Yeah, I think this is the one where people care the most, and there's already there's already blood in the water when it comes to Adam Gase. I think there's always going to be with him, just based off his personality. He said, like, he owned up to the lack of touchdowns in the red zone.
Right.
Like, he owned up to that, and I mean, do you agree with that? Like, is it an issue not having touchdowns yet?
I think so.
You want it for selfish reasons because you just want excitement,
but at the same time, they would have had touchdowns if they didn't have flags, and that's penalties. What it always comes back to. It's the flag, the drive killing flags that just hasn't changed.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing that stands out the most.
Right. So I want to see
are the flags. Yeah, you want to see the touchdowns.
Because that just shows, you can put together a drive, which is more important than the points, is you need to have a good drive to result in points. So, 1 + 2 = 3. You got to do both. Because I can't do another 4 field goal game, man. I'm going to turn it off halfway through, and there are going to be people on Twitter, oh, but, this guy looks so good, and this guy looks so good. But you can't say that kind of stuff when you leave that many points on the table. You just can't.
Yeah, I think I told you the score would have been 17-6.
Yeah.
If there were no penalties, and if I told you your team was scoring 17 points in the first half in the regular season, you'd be pretty pumped up about the results of that team throughout the season.
Exactly, or at least excited to look forward to it, because this is the time we're supposed to be the most hyped, top of the world about the season, and I want that. That's all I want, is to get hyped. I'm not bashing the team or anything, but you just want touchdowns. And Topher, I saw a kind of interesting stat to go back to how Frank Gore is going to play in his first game. The Dolphins in the preseason are averaging 5.2 yards a carry, which is the best in the NFL. How excited are you about just seeing this running back group kind of come together?
I think when it comes to the running game, it's just honestly predicated on the wide receivers blocking.
Exactly.
Travis Wingfield, who we've had on the show in the past, he's basically highlighted that yep. The offense is not good, or the offensive line isn't good enough to make semi-truck size holes for the running back to get through. So, if Frank Gore can somehow make runs out of this O-line, then I'll take it. But how much of this stuff is just Dolphins pessimism?
I think
is it just piling on right now? Is it just PTSD when it comes to Miami Dolphins football?
Yeah, because I mean it's the same thing happening over and over. It's not like players are playing bad or you're dropping balls. It's just a consistent brain fart, I guess, where Tannehill will get. I would go back to 2016. He'll just get blown up on a random play just because Laramie Tunsil didn't move over fast enough, and it just kills an entire drive. And we kind of saw that during this preseason game where Tunsil didn't always look the fastest, and staying in front of his guy. It's PTSD because it's just happened so much. And I'm actually pretty surprised Tannehill doesn't have it because I'm not going to lie, he did look pretty good at times.
Yeah, he knew. He looks like he knew what he was going to do with the ball.
Yep.
And he looks like he knew what the game plan was.
Right.
But it's so far it's looked like classic Tannehill.
Right.
20-yard box. We're bringing that back. 20-yard box. High completion percentage, but really nothing to show for it.
Exactly.
And that's kind of like Tannehill in a nutshell. Outside of I would say with Gase, when they went to the playoffs as well, is smart, accurate passes. That aren't. It's not really taking chances, and and that's like the Joe Philbin years,
right?
Where he's scoring, he's throwing touchdown passes, but like it's almost like there's like nothing to show for it because it's a results oriented league, and if you're not making the playoffs, then everything your performances don't matter as much because the result isn't what you wanted.
Exactly. And the one thing, but we'll stop talking about Tannehill after this, but the one thing like that I keep thinking about is how everyone says Tannehill was at his peak in 2016, which he was. He played great, but when you just look at the results, you cut out the great interceptions, the things that made those team games so much fun, the Kiko interceptions, the fumble recoveries, all the things like that. Tannehill in his best season had the same amount of touchdowns as Jay Cutler did in his worst while playing the same amount of games. They both played 14 and had the same amount of touchdowns. We need to see better than that. And you can't do that without taking chances, firing it downfield. And hopefully they do it. We haven't seen it yet. I'm excited to see it maybe happen. But if we get like 2016 Tannehill, I'm not really sure you can instantly say it's necessarily good enough for this team to reach the playoffs.
If you get 2016 Tannehill again, it lets me know that Alex Smith is better than Ryan Tannehill.
Mm-hmm.
Because Albert Wilson could crack the code. Well, he actually, right. Like he's the code cracker, so he cracked that code that Alex Smith is better than Tannehill. But it'll just be so uninspiring.
Exactly.
Because you know what it would be. But yeah, like I said, you don't want to pound on it too much. But yeah, you just want this preseason game just to give you hope and excitement from certain players, and we haven't even gotten that. Like we just haven't gotten the hope or excitement from an offensive player. Like would you say the best play of the offense this preseason was an incomplete pass to Gesicki?
Yeah, the most memorable, and that's what I want. Like exciting plays like that. I mean, the Howard interception was great. The Robert Quinn sacks were great.
The Drake runs are pretty cool.
The Drake
run
is
you want
great.
That one play.
But you want that run.
You want that play from a young guy.
Exactly, and that's great. But you see all these things happening. The only thing that matters is the results. And in the preseason, that doesn't necessarily mean the final score because obviously the first team's not playing the whole game. But it means we need to see something. We need to see points on the board because 3 ain't gonna cut it. Another team scoring 7. I mean, Topher, you're a school teacher. How fastly do you fall behind if you do that?
Real quick. Especially with when you got your offense, when you don't trust the defense. And I mean, do you trust the defense?
I actually
you don't feel confident in them, but like you have an idea, like all right, they could hold their own for a game.
It really seems like
or for moments.
And that's the thing about the 2016 defense is because they couldn't hold their own. They were really bad against the run, but they got the crazy turnovers, the insane. I don't want to say luck, but always at the right place and the right time. And it seems now where there's actually like a little bit of consistency, where I go back to it again because we really haven't seen it too much. But the last time, can you think of the last time you saw a Dolphin linebacker like slide between 2 linemen and blow up a screen in the backfield like Raekwon did?
No. This was probably the first preseason where I've seen it. And I'm like, oh God, I haven't seen that in the Dolphins uniform in a while. But what do you think about Sue's Instagram comments? Basically, I guess on his story where he screenshotted the run by McCaffrey.
It doesn't really make a difference. Sure, he can laugh about it, but the run defense was god awful when he was here. And
yeah, exactly. That's what I thought as well.
And that's the thing, everyone's so concerned, like, oh, we shouldn't have cut Sue. We shouldn't have cut Sue. Sure, we probably shouldn't have, but we need the money down the road. We needed the money now. And if the defense was that bad then, it can't get much worse. That's why, it's kind of like back in 2013 when it took, 2016. Wow, I'm all over the place. Gase cutting those 3 linemen because we're all sitting here wondering what could be worse than Dallas Thomas, but lo and behold, they found someone where, the line wasn't great, but it was serviceable. So they're just trying to like use resources in a different way. Losing Sue sucks, but you kind of.
But they have Kendall Langford.
They have Kendall Langford,
and if he could do it, and if he could contribute, then I guess make the best of a bad situation.
All right, Topher, we're running out of time here, so I'm going to ask you this one final question since you brought up Kendall Langford. Do you think he found his earring yet?
I think he's still looking, and that's why he wanted to come back to Miami.
I think so too.
That's why he wanted to come back, was to find that earring. That's the only reason why.
Wait, maybe it wasn't an earring. Stay woke, and it was like a wedding ring, and he liked it so much he put a ring on it.
Fins up.
Fins up.